Welcome to Woo English, where you learn English through stories. Today's story uses clear and simple sentences to help you improve. If you find our stories helpful, please press the like button and leave a comment to support us. Let's dive in. Chapter 1. The Arrival. In the summer of 1922, Nick Carraway made a big change in his life. He decided to move to West Egg, a place near New York City. West Egg was known for its huge houses and the rich people who lived in them. Nick rented a small house there. Right next to his house stood a mansion, much bigger and more beautiful than any other house around. This mansion belonged to a man named J. Gatsby. Nick had a job in the city selling bonds. He was a hard-working man, hoping to make a good life for himself. Every day he travelled to New York City and back. But what interested Nick the most was not his job. It was his mysterious neighbour, J. Gatsby. Gatsby was a man of wealth with a love for big parties. Every weekend his house would light up and music would fill the air. People from all over would come to Gatsby's parties. They danced, they laughed, and they enjoyed the lavish lifestyle. But nobody really knew who J. Gatsby was. He was like a puzzle that everyone wanted to solve. Nick, too, was curious about Gatsby. He saw the parties from his window, but had never met Gatsby himself. That all changed one evening when Nick received an invitation to one of Gatsby's famous parties. This was unusual because Gatsby's parties were open to anyone, yet rarely did Gatsby personally invite his guests. Feeling both excited and nervous, Nick dressed in his best clothes and walked over to Gatsby's mansion. The sight that greeted him was beyond anything he had imagined. The house was like a palace, filled with lights and decorations. People were everywhere, dancing under the stars, chatting and laughing. Waiters moved through the crowd, offering drinks and treats. The air was filled with music, so lively and loud that it made Nick's heart beat faster. As Nick wandered through the party, he realised that most people there had never met Gatsby. They came for the fun and the luxury, but they didn't know their host. Nick felt a bit lost in the crowd until he finally saw Gatsby. Gatsby stood alone, watching his guests with a smile. He was a young man, not much older than Nick, with a kind and welcoming face. Gatsby noticed Nick and approached him. "I'm glad you could make it," Gatsby said, shaking Nick's hand. His voice was warm and friendly. Nick felt at ease immediately. They talked for a while, and Gatsby asked Nick about himself. Nick learned that Gatsby was also from the Midwest and that they shared some common backgrounds. As the night went on, Nick watched Gatsby. He noticed that Gatsby often looked out at the water, towards a green light in the distance. There was something in Gatsby's gaze that seemed full of hope and longing. Nick wanted to ask about it, but he felt it was too personal. The party continued until the early hours of the morning. Nick left feeling amazed and full of thoughts about Gatsby. Who was he really? Why did he throw these parties? And what was the meaning of the green light he seemed so focused on? Nick's curiosity about Gatsby grew stronger. He knew that this summer would be unlike any other. He was right at the edge of a great story, and he couldn't wait to see how it would unfold. Little did he know, his life and J. Gatsby's were about to become closely intertwined, leading them through a summer filled with mystery, excitement, and unexpected discoveries. As Nick walked back to his house, the night was quiet, and the stars were bright. He felt a sense of adventure in the air, a prelude to the unforgettable experiences that lay ahead. This was just the beginning of Nick's journey into the world of J. Gatsby, a journey that would change him forever. Chapter 2. The Valley of Ashes. One hot summer day, Tom Buchanan invited Nick Carraway on a journey. They were to take a train to New York City. But first, They stopped in a place called the Valley of Ashes. It was a strange and sad area between West Egg and the city. The Valley of Ashes was filled with factories, and the air was thick with smoke. Everything was covered in a layer of grey dust. It looked like the dreams of many people had been forgotten there. In the middle of this grey world, there was a garage owned by a man named George Wilson. He was a thin, tired-looking man who fixed cars for a living. His garage was the only spot of life in the Valley of Ashes, but even that life seemed dull and hopeless. Tom told Nick to wait outside the garage. Inside, Tom met with George Wilson's wife, Myrtle Wilson. She was a lively woman, full of energy and looking for excitement. Myrtle was very different from her husband. While George seemed defeated by life, Myrtle was searching for a way out of the Valley of Ashes. Nick quickly understood that Myrtle was Tom's lover. This secret relationship was why they had come to this sad place. Tom and Myrtle talked for a while, and then they all decided to go to New York City together. Myrtle was excited about the trip. She saw it as an escape from her grey world. They took the train into the city. Myrtle's mood changed as they travelled. She became happier and more alive with each mile they left the Valley of Ashes behind. In the city, Tom rented an apartment where he and Myrtle could spend time away from the eyes of the world. It was their secret place. Once in the apartment, Myrtle transformed. She dressed in fancy clothes and put on makeup. She wanted to feel like she belonged to Tom's world, a world far from the dusty Valley of Ashes. They invited some friends over and had a small party. The party was loud and full of laughter. Music played and people danced. Nick watched as Myrtle enjoyed herself, pretending to be someone she wasn't. She acted as if she was rich and important. But Nick could see the sadness behind her eyes. She was trapped in a dream that could never come true. As the night went on, the mood changed. Tom and Myrtle began to argue. The argument grew louder and more intense until suddenly Tom hit Myrtle. The party stopped. The apartment became quiet. Myrtle's nose was bleeding, and everyone was shocked. Tom had shown his true nature, powerful and violent. Nick felt uncomfortable and out of place. He realized that this world of secret relationships and hidden violence was not where he belonged. He saw the emptiness in chasing dreams that lead to places like the Valley of Ashes or secret apartments in the city. The evening ended, and they all went their separate ways. Nick returned to West Egg, thinking about what he had seen and experienced. The Valley of Ashes, with its grey despair, seemed to represent the darker side of the American dream. It was a place where dreams died under the weight of reality. As Nick lay in bed that night, he couldn't stop thinking about the Valley of Ashes and the people who lived there. George Wilson, trapped in his life of dust and despair. Myrtle Wilson, dreaming of a better life but finding only sadness. And Tom Buchanan, living a lie, unable to see the pain he caused. Nick realized that the American dream was not the same for everyone. For some, it was a bright promise of a better future. For others, like those in the Valley of Ashes, it was a dream that had turned into a nightmare. The journey with Tom had opened Nick's eyes to the complexities of life and the different paths people take in the pursuit of happiness. As the night turned into morning, Nick knew that his summer in West Egg would be full of more lessons about the world and the people in it. He was no longer just an observer. He was now a part of the story unfolding around him. And he was determined to understand it, no matter where it led. Chapter 3. Gatsby's Grand Party. Nick had never seen anything like the party at J. Gatsby's mansion. As he walked through the gates, he entered a world of wonder. Lights twinkled like stars, music floated through the air, and people laughed and danced everywhere. It was a summer night, but the garden felt like a fairy tale. Gatsby's house was enormous, and every corner was alive with celebration. There were tables filled with delicious foods and drinks. Guests moved from room to room, enjoying the luxury. Some swam in the pool, while others danced on the lawn under the moonlight. It was a mix of people, rich and famous, young and old. But they all shared a love for Gatsby's extravagant parties. Nick wandered through the crowds, feeling both excited and a bit lost. He knew nobody there, yet he felt drawn to the energy of the place. He watched the guests, wondering about their lives and what brought them to Gatsby's world. As the evening went on, Nick heard stories about Gatsby. Some said he was a hero in the war, others whispered he was a spy. The mystery of Gatsby fascinated Nick. He wanted to meet the man behind these tales. Finally, Nick found himself talking to a man who seemed as out of place as he felt. They spoke about the party and the guests. Suddenly, Nick realized he was speaking to Gatsby himself. Gatsby was not at all what Nick had expected. He was young, handsome, and very polite. Yet, there was a sadness in his eyes that Nick couldn't understand. Gatsby seemed interested in Nick, asking him questions about his life. Nick learned that Gatsby was originally from the Midwest, just like him. This connection made Nick feel closer to Gatsby. They talked for a while, and Gatsby invited Nick to go boating the next day. Nick was thrilled. He felt honoured to be singled out by Gatsby for a personal invitation. As the party continued, Nick watched Gatsby from a distance. Gatsby was the perfect host, making sure everyone was happy. But he didn't join in the fun. He watched, always looking for something, or someone, across the sea of faces. Nick realised that Gatsby's parties were not just about enjoyment. They were a way for Gatsby to search for something lost, something very dear to him. Nick felt a mix of admiration and pity for Gatsby. Here was a man who had everything, yet seemed so alone. The night grew late, and the guests began to leave. The music slowed, and the lights dimmed. Gatsby stood alone on his balcony, looking out at the ocean. Nick felt it was time to go home, but the image of Gatsby, alone and searching, stayed with him. As he walked back to his house, Nick thought about the party. It was more than just a celebration. It was a glimpse into the lives of the rich and their endless pursuit of happiness. But for Gatsby, it was something more. It was a quest, a need to find something that perhaps could never be found. Nick realised that Gatsby was a man of deep emotions, hidden behind the glamour of his parties. He was a man caught in the past, hoping for a future that might never come. This realisation made Nick feel a deep connection to Gatsby. He wanted to know more about this mysterious man and the secret dreams he chased. That night, Nick couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, thinking about Gatsby and the world he had entered. It was a world of beauty and sadness, of dreams and disappointments. Nick knew that this summer would change him. He was no longer just a bystander. He was now a part of Gatsby's story, a story that was only beginning to unfold. And so, Nick awaited the next chapter, eager to see where this journey with Gatsby would lead him. He knew it would be a story of great adventures, but also of great mysteries. For in Gatsby's world, nothing was as simple as it seemed. And Nick was ready to discover the truth, no matter where it might take him. Chapter 4. Secrets Revealed. One sunny morning, after the grand party, Gatsby invited Nick for a drive in his luxurious car. As they glided along the road, the world outside seemed to sparkle just a little brighter, as if touched by Gatsby's magic. Nick was curious about Gatsby, the man who lived in a world of endless parties and secrets. Today he would learn the truth behind the mystery. Gatsby began to talk, not about himself at first, but about what people thought of him. He laughed softly at the rumours of his past, shaking his head. Then slowly the smile faded from his face, and he turned to Nick with a serious look. "I want to tell you something, Nick," he said, his voice low. "Something I haven't told anyone else." Nick listened, realising this was the moment he would finally understand Gatsby. Gatsby spoke of his love for a woman named Daisy. She was beautiful and full of life, the kind of woman who could make the whole room brighten with her smile. But Daisy was not just any woman. She was Daisy Buchanan, Tom's wife. Nick was shocked. He knew Daisy, of course. She was his cousin, a delicate beauty with sad eyes. Gatsby told Nick about the past, about how he and Daisy had fallen in love many years ago before the war. They had dreamed of a future together, a future full of love and happiness. But fate had other plans. Gatsby went to war, and when he returned, Daisy was married to Tom Buchanan. Gatsby's voice was filled with a deep longing as he spoke of Daisy. Nick could see the love in Gatsby's ease, a love that had not faded with time. Gatsby told Nick about his dream to win Daisy back. He had built his life, his wealth, and his parties, all in the hope that Daisy would come into his world once again. As they drove, Gatsby shared more of his past. He had come from humble beginnings, but he had always dreamed of a better life. He had worked hard, and with a bit of luck, he had made a fortune. But all his wealth and success meant nothing without Daisy. She was the reason for everything he did. Nick was moved by Gatsby's story. He saw Gatsby in a new light, not just as a mysterious millionaire, but as a man driven by love and dreams. Gatsby asked Nick for a favour. He wanted Nick to arrange a meeting between him and Daisy. It was a chance for Gatsby to see Daisy again, to show her the man he had become. Nick agreed to help Gatsby. He understood Gatsby's desire to reclaim a lost love, to try and make the dream of his youth come true. It was a bold plan, full of hope and fear. But for Gatsby, it was more than a plan. It was his last chance to find happiness. The drive ended, and they returned to Gatsby's mansion. The house seemed different to Nick now. It was no longer just a place of parties and laughter. It was a home filled with the dreams and memories of J. Gatsby. In the days that followed, Nick thought about Gatsby and Daisy. He saw the world through Gatsby's eyes, a world where love was worth any risk. Nick arranged the meeting, a simple tea at his house where Gatsby and Daisy could be together again. The day of the meeting arrived, and with it, a storm of emotions. Gatsby was nervous, his usual confidence replaced by a hopeful anxiety. Daisy was curious, unaware of the true reason for the invitation. Nick watched as the past and the present came together, as two hearts tried to find their way back to each other. Gatsby and Daisy's reunion was awkward at first, but as they talked, the years seemed to melt away. They laughed and shared memories, and for a brief moment, the dreams seemed possible. Nick saw the love between them, a love that had endured the test of time. As the afternoon turned to evening, Daisy had to leave. The meeting was over, but the story was just beginning. Gatsby's dream was alive, fueled by the hope of a future with Daisy. But dreams are fragile, and the path to happiness is often filled with obstacles. Nick left Gatsby that evening, his mind full of thoughts. He had witnessed the power of love and dreams, the strength of a man who refused to give up on his heart's desire. Gatsby's secret was revealed, but the journey was far from over. There were still chapters to be written in the story of J. Gatsby and Daisy Buchanan. Nick knew that whatever happened, he would stand by Gatsby. He had seen the man behind the mystery, a man who dared to dream in a world that often crushed dreams. For Nick, Gatsby was no longer just a neighbour or a friend. He was a symbol of hope, a reminder that it is never too late to chase after what truly matters in life. And so, as the stars came out and the night wrapped the world in its quiet embrace, Nick looked towards Gatsby's mansion. The lights were on, casting a warm glow across the lawn. It was a beacon in the night, a symbol of Gatsby's undying love for Daisy. Nick smiled, knowing he was part of something extraordinary, a story of love, dreams, and the endless possibilities of the human heart. Chapter 5. The Reunion. Nick had made a decision that would change the lives of two people forever. He had agreed to help Gatsby reunite with Daisy, the woman he had loved for so many years. The day of the meeting arrived, and the air was filled with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Nick's house was the chosen place for this special reunion. It was a simple setting, far from the grandeur of Gatsby's mansion, but it was perfect for a private and intimate meeting. As the time drew near, Gatsby arrived at Nick's house. He was dressed in his finest suit, looking more like a prince from a fairy tale than a man about to meet his long-lost love. Gatsby was nervous, his usual confidence replaced by a hopeful anxiety. Nick could see the mix of emotions on Gatsby's face: hope, fear, and a deep longing. Nick had asked Daisy to come over for tea without mentioning Gatsby. When Daisy arrived, she was surprised to find Gatsby there. The moment she saw him, a range of emotions crossed her face: shock, happiness, and a hint of sadness. The reunion was awkward at first. Words were hard to find, and the air was thick with unspoken feelings. Gatsby and Daisy sat down, with Nick playing the role of host, trying to ease the tension. The room was quiet, the silence only broken by the sound of the rain starting to fall outside. Nick excused himself, giving Gatsby and Daisy a chance to talk alone. At first they spoke about simple things: the weather, the garden, and Nick's cosy house. But slowly, as they looked into each other's eyes, the years seemed to melt away. They began to share memories of their time together, of the dreams they had once shared. The awkwardness faded, replaced by a familiar warmth and affection. Gatsby showed Daisy around Nick's house, and they laughed at old jokes only they understood. They talked about Gatsby's parties, and Daisy admitted she had heard so much about them, but had never been. Gatsby's face lit up with the idea of showing Daisy his world, his mansion, and all the beauty he had built in the hope of winning her back. As the afternoon turned into evening, the rain stopped, and a rainbow appeared in the sky. It seemed like a sign, a promise of new beginnings. Gatsby and Daisy stood at the window, watching the rainbow, their hands touching lightly. The connection between them was undeniable. The love that had never truly faded was rekindled in that moment. Nick watched from a distance, feeling like he had witnessed something magical. He had helped bring together two people who were meant to be together, but he also knew that their path would not be easy. Daisy was married to Tom, and the society they lived in would not easily accept their love. As Daisy prepared to leave, she turned to Gatsby, her eyes shining with tears of happiness and sorrow. "This has been the most beautiful day," she whispered. Gatsby held her hand, promising without words that he would do everything in his power to make every day beautiful for her. After Daisy left, Gatsby turned to Nick, his eyes full of hope and gratitude. "Thank you, Nick," he said. "Today has changed everything." Nick could see the determination in Gatsby's eyes. He was ready to fight for his love, to challenge the world for Daisy. The reunion had reignited the love between Gatsby and Daisy, but it had also set in motion a series of events that would test their love and challenge their dreams. Nick realized that his role in their story was far from over. He had become the bridge between their past and their possible future. As the night fell, the house returned to silence. But the silence was different now. It was filled with the promise of love and the whisper of dreams. Nick sat alone, thinking about the day's events. He understood that love could be as complicated as it was beautiful. It could bring happiness but also pain. Yet, in that moment, Nick believed in the power of love. He believed that Gatsby and Daisy deserved a chance to be happy together, and he knew that he would do whatever he could to help them on their journey. The reunion had been a moment of magic, a spark that could light the way to a new future. But the road ahead was uncertain. Nick knew that the story of Gatsby and Daisy was far from over. It was just beginning, and he was ready to see where it would lead. Chapter 6. Gatsby's Dream. In the world of glittering parties and grand mansions, there was a man named Gatsby. He was a mystery to many, a man of wealth and charm. But behind the glamour, there was a story of dreams and determination. This is the tale of Gatsby's dream. Gatsby was not always the man we knew. He came from humble beginnings, born to a poor family in the Midwest. From a young age, Gatsby dreamed of a different life, a life of success and splendor. He believed in the American dream, the idea that anyone, no matter their start in life, could achieve greatness through hard work and dedication. As a young man, Gatsby set out to make his dream a reality. He left home, determined to transform himself. His journey was not easy. He faced challenges and hardships, but he never lost sight of his goal. Along the way, Gatsby met people who saw his potential and helped him on his path. One of these people was Dan Cody, a wealthy man who became Gatsby's mentor. Cody showed Gatsby a world of luxury and wealth, a glimpse of the life he yearned for. Gatsby's ambition was fueled by more than just the desire for wealth. It was driven by love, by his love for Daisy. Daisy was the golden girl, the embodiment of everything Gatsby wanted. She was beautiful, graceful, and came from a world of privilege. Gatsby fell in love with her, and she became the symbol of his dream. Winning Daisy's love was the ultimate goal, the prize that would mean he had truly made it. Gatsby's love for Daisy was deep and unwavering. Even after they were separated and Daisy married another, Gatsby's dream did not die. He believed that he could win her back, that he could create a perfect world where they could be together. This belief drove him to build his fortune, to create the persona of J. Gatsby, the wealthy and mysterious host of lavish parties. Gatsby's mansion, his parties, his entire life were all built for Daisy. He hoped that she would walk into one of his parties one day, that she would see the life he had built for her. Gatsby wanted to prove to Daisy and to the world that he was worthy of her love. Despite his wealth and success, Gatsby remained a dreamer at heart. His dream was not just about money or status. It was about achieving a perfect moment, a moment of happiness with Daisy. Gatsby's dream was pure, but it was also a fantasy, a vision of life that could not exist in the real world. As the summer went on, Gatsby's dream seemed to come closer to reality. With Nick's help, he reunited with Daisy. For a moment, it seemed as if his dream might come true. Daisy was drawn to Gatsby, to the passion and intensity of his love. They shared moments of happiness, whispers of what could be. But dreams are fragile, and the world is complicated. Gatsby's dream was built on the idea of perfection, but life is imperfect. Daisy was not the idealized figure that Gatsby had held in his heart. She was a real person, with her own desires and fears. And the world they lived in, a world of wealth and privilege, was not a place where dreams could easily survive. Gatsby's dream was more than just a desire for love and success. It was a reflection of the American dream, the belief in the possibility of transformation and redemption. Gatsby wanted to believe that a person could rise above their past, that love could conquer all. But his dream was challenged by the realities of society, by the barriers of class and expectation. As the summer drew to a close, the truth became clear. Gatsby's dream, no matter how beautiful, could not stand against the tide of reality. His love for Daisy, though true, could not change the world they lived in. Gatsby was left to face the consequences of his dream, the realization that some dreams, no matter how deeply held, cannot be made real. In the end, Gatsby's story is a tale of dreams and disappointment, of love and loss. It is a reflection on the nature of the American dream, the idea that we can be anything we want to be. Gatsby's dream was a testament to his hope and his courage, but it was also a reminder that dreams are not enough, that the world is not always kind to dreamers. Gatsby's dream was the heart of his story, a story that captivated everyone who entered his world. He was a man who dared to dream, to reach for the stars. And though he may not have grasped them, his dream left a mark on the world, a reminder of the power of hope and the tragedy of a dream deferred. Chapter 7. The Confrontation. On a hot and sticky summer day, the air was thick with tension. This was the day when hidden feelings and secrets would come crashing into the light. Nick, Gatsby, Daisy, Tom, and Jordan found themselves gathered at the Buchanan's grand house, a place of luxury. But on this day, it was a stage for a drama that would unfold with fierce emotion. The afternoon began with unease. The heat seemed to press down, making everyone feel restless and on edge. Conversation was strained, as if each word carried a weight of unspoken thoughts. Daisy was nervous, glancing between Tom and Gatsby, the two men in her life who were on a collision course. Tom, sensing something was not right, was on edge. His gaze was sharp, and his questions were probing, looking for the truth he sensed was being hidden from him. Gatsby, usually so composed, was tense. His dream, his world, hinged on this moment, on convincing Daisy to declare her love for him. As the afternoon wore on, the tension grew. Unable to bear the oppressive atmosphere of the house, they decided to go to the city. Tom, Gatsby, Daisy, Nick, and Jordan split into two cars. The journey was charged with silent conflict, a prelude to the storm that was brewing. They ended up at a suite in the Plaza Hotel, a place of elegance, but now it was a battleground. The heat outside was matched by the heat of the emotions inside. Tom confronted Gatsby, accusing him of trying to steal Daisy away. Gatsby, with a passion that surprised everyone, declared that Daisy never loved Tom, that she only ever loved Gatsby. Daisy was caught in the middle, her heart torn between her past with Gatsby and her life with Tom. Tom, fueled by anger and jealousy, revealed Gatsby's shady dealings, trying to paint him as unworthy of Daisy. Gatsby defended himself, trying to keep his dream of being with Daisy alive. The room was filled with anger, hurt, and desperate love. Daisy was overwhelmed, her feelings for Gatsby clashing with the reality of her life with Tom. In a moment of intense emotion, she admitted she had loved Tom once, but Gatsby too. The revelation was a blow to Gatsby, who had wanted Daisy to deny her love for Tom entirely. The confrontation reached its peak, with Tom asserting his control over Daisy, confident that she would never leave him despite her feelings for Gatsby. Daisy, confused and defeated, seemed to shrink under the weight of her situation. Gatsby's dream began to crumble as he realized that the perfect future he had imagined with Daisy might never come to pass. The tension of the day took its toll, and the group decided to head back to West Egg. The ride back was silent, each person lost in their thoughts, reflecting on the revelations and the heated words exchanged. The day had started with hidden tensions and ended with dramatic confrontations, leaving relationships strained and futures uncertain. Gatsby was shattered, his dream of a life with Daisy hanging by a thread. Tom was smug, confident in his victory and his hold over Daisy. Daisy was distraught, torn between her love for Gatsby and her life with Tom. Nick and Jordan were witnesses to the unravelling of a love story, a drama that had reached its climax in the heat of a summer's day. As the evening fell, the events of the day weighed heavily on everyone's minds. The confrontation had exposed the deep rifts and unhealable wounds in their relationships. For Gatsby, the dream he had cherished, the future he had envisioned with Daisy, seemed more distant than ever. The reality of their situation was clear. The past could not be recreated, and the future was uncertain. The day had started with the promise of revelations and ended with the heartache of broken dreams. The confrontation at the Buchanan's and the Plaza Hotel was a turning point, a moment when the fragile illusions that had held their lives together were shattered. In the aftermath, they were left to pick up the pieces, to face the reality of their choices and the consequences of their desires. As the night settled in, the summer heat lingered, a reminder of the day's intensity. The drama of the confrontation had revealed the true nature of their relationships, leaving them forever changed. For Gatsby, the dream was not yet dead, but it had been wounded deeply. He would continue to hope, to fight for a love that seemed more elusive than ever. But the events of the day had shown that some dreams, no matter how deeply felt, might remain just out of reach, caught in the shadow of reality. Chapter 8. The Tragedy. In the quiet that followed the storm of emotions and confrontations, the world seemed to hold its breath. The events of the previous day had left their mark on everyone involved, a mark that would soon lead to a tragedy that no one could have foreseen. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Gatsby and Daisy found themselves alone, the weight of their decisions and desires pressing down on them. They decided to drive back to West Egg. Daisy behind the wheel of Gatsby's luxurious car, a symbol of his wealth and his love for her. The drive was silent, a stark contrast to the chaos of their feelings. Daisy was lost in thought, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. Gatsby watched her, his heart filled with love and fear. He knew that their love was tangled in complications and dangers, but he couldn't let go of the dream he had built around Daisy. As they approached the Valley of Ashes, a place that stood as a stark reminder of the realities of the world, tragedy struck. Myrtle Wilson, lost in her own despair and longing for escape, ran into the road. Daisy, surprised and unable to react in time, accidentally hit Myrtle with the car. In a moment, a life was extinguished, and the lives of everyone involved were changed forever. Gatsby and Daisy drove on in shock, the weight of what had happened bearing down on them. Gatsby, ever protective of Daisy, decided to take the blame for the accident. He knew the world they lived in, a world where wealth and connections could often hide the truth, but he also knew the cost of such a decision. The news of Myrtle's death spread quickly, a ripple of tragedy that reached every corner of their intertwined lives. George Wilson, Myrtle's husband, was consumed by grief and a desire for revenge. He couldn't see beyond his loss, his world reduced to the pain of Myrtle's absence. Nick, caught in the middle of these unfolding events, could only watch as the tragedy unfolded. He saw the toll it took on Gatsby, the way it shattered the illusion of the perfect world he had tried to create. Gatsby's dream, already fragile, seemed to crumble completely under the weight of reality. The night that followed was long and filled with sorrow. Gatsby waited by his pool, lost in thought, his hopes and dreams for a future with Daisy fading with the stars. He couldn't escape the truth of what had happened, the role he played in the tragedy that had unfolded. As dawn broke, bringing light to a world that had changed overnight, George Wilson, driven by his grief and guided by misunderstandings and lies, made his way to Gatsby's mansion. His heart was filled with a need for vengeance, a way to make sense of the senseless loss of Myrtle. The tragedy reached its climax as George found Gatsby by his pool, the place where he had spent so many hours dreaming of a better life. Without a word, driven by his pain, George took Gatsby's life, believing him to be responsible for Myrtle's death. In that moment, 2 more lives were lost, victims of a chain of events set in motion by secrets and desires. The aftermath of the tragedy was a world shrouded in grief and regret. The dreams that had driven them all, the desires that had tangled their lives together, had led to a place of loss and sorrow. Daisy, unable to face the consequences of her actions, retreated into her life with Tom, leaving behind the wreckage of the dreams she had shared with Gatsby. Nick, the witness to the rise and fall of Gatsby's dream, was left to ponder the cost of chasing illusions in a world that was all too real. He saw the beauty and the tragedy of Gatsby's dream, a dream that had soared so high and fallen so far. As the story of Gatsby, Daisy, Tom, and all those caught in their orbit came to a close, the lessons of their lives lingered in the air. It was a tale of love and loss, of dreams and the harsh light of day. In the end, the tragedy that unfolded was a reminder of the fragility of dreams in a world that doesn't always allow them to come true. The echoes of their story, of the lives they lived and the choices they made, would remain long after the summer had faded. It was a story of the beauty and the pain of dreaming, a story that would not soon be forgotten. Chapter 9. The Fallout. In the aftermath of a tragic accident that shattered the lives of many, the truth became a casualty of fear and deception. The world was still reeling from the loss of Myrtle Wilson, a vibrant life cut short on a quiet road. But the fallout was only beginning, as Tom Buchanan wove a web of lies that would have devastating consequences. Tom, caught in a storm of guilt and self-preservation, saw an opportunity to rid himself of a rival and secure his own position. He whispered lies into the ears of George Wilson, a man consumed by grief and seeking justice for the loss of his wife. Tom painted Gatsby as the villain, the one responsible for Myrtle's death, despite knowing the truth. George Wilson, his world turned upside down, clung to Tom's words as a lifeline in his sea of despair. He couldn't see beyond his grief, and Tom's lies guided him toward a tragic decision. The truth was obscured by the shadows of deceit, leading George to believe that vengeance was his only path to peace. The day was heavy with the weight of impending doom as George Wilson made his way to Gatsby's mansion. The grandeur of the place stood in stark contrast to the darkness in George's heart. He had been convinced that Gatsby was the source of his suffering, the man who had taken everything from him. Gatsby, unaware of the storm brewing, was lost in his own world of heartache and dreams that would never come true. He waited, hoping for a sign from Daisy, a sign that would never come. His love for her had been his downfall, a dream that led him into the path of tragedy. The fallout of Tom's lies reached its climax as George Wilson, driven by a misguided quest for justice, took the life of Jay Gatsby. The shot rang out, a final note in the symphony of sorrow that had enveloped their lives. Gatsby fell, his dreams and hopes fading with him into the cold embrace of the pool. The consequences of Tom's deception were far-reaching. Gatsby's death was a shock that reverberated through the community, a grim reminder of the power of lies and the fragility of human life. Nick Carraway, Gatsby's friend, and the witness to the unravelling of these lives, was left to grapple with the aftermath. Nick saw the truth for what it was, a tangled web of desires and deceit that led to unnecessary loss. He was disillusioned by the moral bankruptcy of those around him, by the ease with which they discarded truth and loyalty. The fallout of the tragedy left him with a deep sense of loss, not just for Gatsby, but for the innocence that had been lost along the way. In the days that followed, the world moved on, but the shadows of the events lingered. Tom and Daisy Buchanan retreated into their life of privilege, untouched by the consequences of their actions. They were insulated from the fallout, their lives a testament to the injustice that money and status could shield one from the repercussions of their deeds. Nick, changed forever by the summer's events, decided to leave West Egg, to leave behind the world of decadence and deceit. He carried with him the memories of Gatsby, a man who dared to dream, but was destroyed by the harsh realities of a world that valued wealth and status over truth and integrity. The fallout of Tom's lies and the tragedy that ensued were a dark chapter in the lives of all involved. It was a story of dreams shattered, of love lost, and of the devastating impact of lies. In the end, the truth was buried beneath the ruins of broken dreams, a cautionary tale of the consequences that follow when deception guides the hand of fate. As Nick left West Egg, he couldn't help but reflect on the lessons learned, on the cost of dreams in a world that often seemed bereft of hope and fairness. The story of Jay Gatsby, of his undying love for Daisy and his tragic end, was a reminder of the price of reaching for a dream in a world that could be cruel and unforgiving. The fallout of that summer's events would stay with Nick, a haunting reminder of the fragility of dreams and the price of deceit. It was a tale that spoke to the heart of the human condition, of the desire for love and acceptance, and the lengths to which people would go to achieve them, even at the cost of their own souls. Chapter 10. The End of a Dream. As the golden rays of the sun began to fade, casting long shadows over West Egg, a profound silence enveloped Gatsby's mansion. This once vibrant place of laughter and music now stood quiet, a stark reminder of the fleeting nature of dreams. Gatsby, the man whose dreams had once seemed so vivid and within reach, found himself alone, waiting for a call that would never come. Gatsby's eyes, full of hope and longing, were fixed on the telephone. He clung to the belief that Daisy would reach out, that she would choose love over the life she had with Tom. In his heart, Gatsby refused to let go of the dream that had propelled him from his humble beginnings to the glittering heights of West Egg. But as the hours ticked by, the silence became a heavy weight, a sombre echo of the reality that his dream was slipping away. Nick, observing Gatsby's unwavering faith in his dream, began to see the cracks in the facade. He had admired Gatsby's determination and his ability to dream so passionately. Yet now he saw the flaws in Gatsby's vision, a dream built on the sands of illusion, a love that, perhaps, was more a reflection of Gatsby's desires than the reality of who Daisy truly was. Nick realized that Gatsby's dream was not just about love. It was about the desire to erase the past, to create a perfect future that ignored the complexities of human nature and the world around them. Gatsby's dream, so pure and all-consuming, had blinded him to the truth that some things, once broken, cannot be made whole again. As the evening turned into night, the sense of an ending grew more pronounced. Gatsby, still waiting by the phone, represented a man out of time, a figure clinging to a dream that belonged to a world that no longer existed. The tragedy of Gatsby's dream was not just in its failure to come true, but in its inability to adapt, to see beyond the mirage of a perfect past. Nick's heart ached for Gatsby, for the man who had dared to dream so boldly. Yet, he also felt a deep sadness for the inevitable loss that comes when dreams collide with reality. Nick began to understand that the true beauty of Gatsby's dream was not in its fulfillment, but in its aspiration, in the capacity to dream so deeply and so purely. In the quiet of the night, Nick sat with Gatsby, the two of them enveloped in a shared solitude. They spoke of dreams and of the future, of love and loss. Nick saw the greatness in Gatsby, not for the wealth he had amassed or the parties he had thrown, but for his unwavering belief in the possibility of a better life, of a love that could transcend time and circumstance. But as dawn broke, bringing with it the light of a new day, the reality of Gatsby's situation became undeniable. The dream that had once seemed so tangible, so achievable, had dissipated like mist in the morning sun. Gatsby, with his infinite capacity for hope, faced the end of his dream, not with bitterness, but with a quiet dignity, a recognition of the journey that had brought him so far. Nick, moved by Gatsby's resilience and by the tragic beauty of his dream, realized that the story of J. Gatsby was more than a tale of love lost or dreams deferred. It was a reflection on the human condition, on the power of dreams to inspire and to wound, on the courage it takes to reach for the stars, even when they seem out of grasp. As Nick prepared to leave West Egg, leaving behind the world of Gatsby and the dreams that had captivated him, he carried with him a deeper understanding of the complexities of the human heart. Gatsby's dream, though it had ended, had left a lasting imprint, a reminder of the beauty of dreaming and the poignant truth that lies at the heart of all human aspirations. The end of Gatsby's dream was not just the closing of a chapter, but a meditation on the enduring power of hope, on the indomitable spirit that drives us to seek a better life, a greater love, despite the challenges and disappointments we may face. In the end, Gatsby's legacy was not one of failure, but of the timeless quest for beauty, meaning, and connection in an often indifferent world. Chapter 11. The Last Goodbye. As the summer sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the lush lawns of West Egg, Nick Carraway made his way to J. Gatsby's mansion for what would be their final meeting. The grandeur of Gatsby's home, once a beacon of lavish parties and unbridled optimism, now stood as a sombre monument to a dream that was slipping away. Nick found Gatsby standing by the pool, his gaze fixed on the horizon, as if he could will Daisy's presence into being. The air was filled with a poignant mix of hope and despair. Gatsby, the eternal optimist, clung to the belief that Daisy would call, that she would choose love over the security of her life with Tom. Yet, beneath his hopeful veneer, there was a palpable sense of disillusionment. As they spoke, Nick could see the cracks in Gatsby's meticulously crafted facade. Gatsby shared his thoughts and feelings, revealing a vulnerability Nick had never seen before. He spoke of his love for Daisy, of the life they could have had together, and of his unwavering belief in the green light at the end of her dock, a symbol of his undying hope. But as the conversation unfolded, Nick began to see the flaws in Gatsby's dream. He realized that Gatsby's vision of the future was anchored in a past that could never be reclaimed. Daisy, with all her complexities and contradictions, could not fulfill the idealized role Gatsby had envisioned for her. Nick saw the tragedy of Gatsby's dream. It was not just about a love lost, but about the futility of trying to recapture a golden moment that had passed. Despite this, Gatsby's hope remained undimmed. He spoke of waiting for Daisy's call, of starting anew, of a future where they could leave the pain and mistakes of the past behind. His words were tinged with a desperate optimism, a refusal to accept the reality that was closing in around him. As the evening wore on, Nick knew he had to leave. He offered Gatsby a farewell, a gesture of friendship and understanding. Gatsby, ever the gracious host, smiled and thanked Nick, insisting that everything would be all right in the end. But as Nick walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was leaving Gatsby to face his fate alone. That night, tragedy struck. The dream that Gatsby had clung to so fiercely was extinguished in a moment of violence. George Wilson, driven by grief and misled by Tom's lies, took Gatsby's life, believing him responsible for Myrtle's death. Gatsby's hope for a future with Daisy died with him, by his pool, under the stars. The news of Gatsby's death spread quickly, sending ripples of shock and disbelief through West Egg and beyond. Nick was heartbroken, not just for the loss of his friend, but for the end of a dream that had been so beautiful, yet so flawed from the start. As Nick took on the task of arranging Gatsby's funeral, he was struck by the absence of those who had once flocked to Gatsby's side. Daisy and Tom had vanished, retreating into their privileged world, untouched by the consequences of their actions. The fair-weather friends who had revelled in Gatsby's hospitality were nowhere to be found. In the end, it was Nick who said the last goodbye to J. Gatsby. He stood by Gatsby's grave, a lone witness to the end of a dream that had captivated so many. Nick reflected on Gatsby's life, on the purity of his dream and the harsh reality that had crushed it. He realized that Gatsby's greatness lay not in his wealth or his parties, but in his boundless capacity for hope, in his belief in the possibility of a better life. As Nick left West Egg behind, returning to the Midwest and the simplicity of his roots, he carried with him the lessons of that summer. He had seen the best and the worst of what dreams could do. He had witnessed the beauty of hope and the tragedy of its collapse. And in the story of J. Gatsby, Nick found a cautionary tale about the dangers of living too much in the past, of chasing a dream without seeing the reality that lay before one's eyes. The last goodbye was not just a farewell to Gatsby, but to an era, to a fleeting moment of glory that had shone brightly before fading into the shadows of history. It was a reminder of the impermanence of dreams and the enduring strength of the human spirit to dream, despite the odds. Chapter 12. The Truth Unveiled. In the quiet aftermath of tragedy, the world seemed to stand still, weighed down by the loss of J. Gatsby and the cruel twist of fate that had claimed his life. Nick Carraway, once an observer on the fringes of this glittering world, found himself at the heart of a mystery that would unveil the truth and expose the moral decay at the core of the wealthy elite. As Nick, delved deeper into the events leading up to the fateful night, he pieced together the reality of the accident that had taken Myrtle Wilson's life. The truth emerged like a photograph, developing slowly in the dim light. Daisy had been driving the car that night, her hands at the wheel when the tragedy struck, not Gatsby. Gatsby had taken the blame, a final act of love and protection for the woman he could never let go. This revelation shook Nick to his core. The world he had been a part of, with its lavish parties and carefree extravagance, was built on a foundation of lies and deceit. The wealthy, with their polished exteriors and manicured lawns, were rotten at the core, their moral compasses so skewed that they could navigate through life without facing the consequences of their actions. Tom and Daisy Buchanan, the epitome of this moral decay, had retreated into their fortress of wealth, indifferent to the chaos they had left in their wake. They were untouched by the pain and suffering they had caused, their lives continuing as if nothing had happened. This realization filled Nick with a profound sense of disillusionment. The values and principles he had held dear seemed to crumble before his eyes, leaving him to question the very fabric of the society he was a part of. The emptiness of the wealthy, their lives devoid of meaning beyond the superficial pursuit of pleasure, became glaringly apparent to Nick. Gatsby, with all his dreams and aspirations, had been nothing more than a distraction to them, a source of entertainment that they could discard without a second thought. The tragedy of Gatsby's life was not just in his untimely death, but in the realization that his dream had been built on an illusion, a mirage in the desert of the wealthy's moral wasteland. Nick's struggle with these revelations led him to a crossroads. He could no longer be a passive spectator, content to watch from the sidelines as the world around him spiraled into decay. The truth about the accident, Gatsby's innocence, and the complicity of those around him spurred Nick into action. He became determined to set the record straight, to clear Gatsby's name and expose the lies that had led to his downfall. But Nick's quest for justice was met with indifference. The wealthy elite were insulated from the consequences of their actions, their lives a carefully constructed facade that hid the emptiness within. Nick's attempts to unveil the truth were like throwing pebbles against a fortress, their impact barely leaving a mark. Disheartened but resolute, Nick made the decision to leave West Egg, to turn his back on a world that had lost its way. The truth about the accident and Gatsby's innocence became a burden he carried with him, a reminder of the cost of dreams in a world that valued wealth over integrity. As Nick prepared to leave, he took one last look at Gatsby's mansion, now silent and empty. It stood as a monument to a dream that had dared to reach for the stars, only to be pulled back down to earth by the weight of reality. In that moment, Nick understood that Gatsby's dream was not just about love or wealth, but about the pursuit of something greater. A quest for meaning, in a world that seemed to have forgotten its value. The truth unveiled, Nick left West Egg with a heavy heart, carrying with him the lessons of that summer. He had seen the best and the worst of humanity, the beauty of dreams and the ugliness of their destruction. The moral decay and emptiness of the wealthy had been laid bare, exposing a truth that was as unsettling as it was enlightening. As he moved forward, Nick carried the hope that the truth would one day be known, that Gatsby's name would be cleared, and that the world would remember him not for the rumours and lies, but for his unyielding pursuit of a dream that had shone too brightly to be ignored. The end of a dream had come, but the legacy of J. Gatsby would live on, a beacon in the darkness, reminding all who knew him of the cost of reaching for the unreachable and the eternal beauty of dreaming. Chapter 13. Farewell to Gatsby. On a grey and sombre morning, under a sky that seemed to mourn with a gentle drizzle, the final chapter in the story of J. Gatsby was written. The funeral of a man who had once filled his mansion with lights, laughter, and music was marked by a stark silence, attended by only a handful of people. This solemn gathering stood in sharp contrast to the grand parties Gatsby was known for, revealing the painful truth about the fleeting nature of the relationships he had fostered. Nick Carraway, Gatsby's friend, and the one who had come to know him best, stood among the sparse crowd, a witness to the poignant end of an era. Beside him were a few servants, the old man who had been Gatsby's father, and a couple of distant acquaintances. The absence of the hundreds of guests who had once revelled in Gatsby's generosity was a silent testament to the superficial bonds that had been mistaken for friendship. As the service proceeded, Nick's thoughts were consumed by reflections on Gatsby's life and the dreams that had propelled him forward. He thought about Gatsby's unwavering hope, his love for Daisy, and his relentless pursuit of a dream that was as beautiful as it was impossible. Gatsby had believed in the green light, the symbol of his aspirations and desires, with a faith that was both touching and tragic. Nick realised that Gatsby's dream had been more than just a pursuit of love. It was a quest for meaning, for a place in a world that seemed to move around him without ever truly seeing him. Gatsby had wanted to belong, to prove that he was worthy of love and respect. But in the end, his dream had been eclipsed by the harsh realities of a society that valued wealth and status above all else. The sparsely attended funeral was a stark reminder of the transient nature of the connections Gatsby had made. The people who had flocked to his parties, who had enjoyed his hospitality without a second thought, had vanished when faced with the reality of his mortality. It was a harsh lesson in the value of genuine relationships, in the difference between those who are drawn to the spectacle and those who stay when the lights go out. As the ceremony came to a close and Gatsby was laid to rest, Nick felt a profound sense of loss. Not just for Gatsby, the man he had come to admire and respect, but for the death of a dream that had been so vibrant, so full of life. Gatsby's belief in the possibility of recapturing the past, of finding happiness in a dream deferred, was a testament to his spirit, to his refusal to give in to despair. In the days that followed, as Nick prepared to leave West Egg and the memories it held, he carried with him the lessons he had learned from Gatsby. He understood now the importance of living with integrity, of cherishing the real connections we make, and of pursuing our dreams with our eyes open to the world around us. Farewell to Gatsby was not just a goodbye to a friend. It was a farewell to a way of life, to a world that Nick no longer belonged to. He left with a clearer vision of what mattered most, a vision shaped by the tragedy and beauty of Gatsby's dream. As Nick moved on, he took with him the memory of Gatsby, the man who had dared to dream too greatly, who had loved too deeply. Gatsby's legacy was not in the parties he had thrown or the wealth he had amassed, but in the purity of his hope and the depth of his longing. In the end, Gatsby's life was a reminder of the enduring power of dreams, of the human capacity for hope in the face of disillusionment. And as Nick bid farewell to Gatsby and the world he had represented, he did so with a sense of gratitude for having known a man who, in his pursuit of a dream, had shown him the true meaning of courage and conviction. Chapter 14. Leaving West Egg. As the summer waned, the vibrant life Nick Carraway had known in West Egg faded into a memory, shadowed by disillusionment and the stark realities of the world he had been a part of. The events that had unfolded, culminating in tragedy and the revelation of truths too heavy to bear, had left him with a profound sense of disquiet. The East, once a symbol of hope and opportunity, now felt tainted, its allure replaced by a bitter understanding of the cost of dreams and the emptiness of the pursuit of wealth. Nick's decision to leave West Egg and the East altogether was not made lightly. It was a response to the moral decay he had witnessed, a desire to distance himself from the shallow relationships and the frivolous lifestyles that had led to so much pain. The grand parties, the endless nights of revelry, had lost their charm, revealing themselves as mere distractions from the emptiness that lay at the heart of this glittering world. The realization that the values and dreams he had once held dear were out of place in the East compelled Nick to seek solace in the familiar comfort of the Midwest. There was a simplicity to life there, a connection to the land and to genuine human relationships that the East seemed to lack. Nick longed for the peace that had eluded him, for a sense of belonging that the opulent mansions and their ephemeral occupants could never provide. As he packed his belongings, Nick reflected on the lessons he had learned. The story of J. Gatsby, with its tragic end, had left an indelible mark on him. Gatsby's unwavering pursuit of his dream, despite the odds, had been both inspiring and cautionary. Nick admired Gatsby's determination and his capacity for hope, but he also recognized the danger of becoming so consumed by a dream that the realities of life are ignored. Disengaging from his former life in West Egg was a process that brought both relief and a sense of loss. Nick had been changed by his experiences, shaped by the people he had met and the events he had witnessed. The decision to leave was a step towards reclaiming his own identity, towards finding a path that was true to his values and his understanding of what it meant to lead a meaningful life. The journey back to the Midwest was a time of introspection for Nick. The landscape rolled by, each mile taking him further from the life he had known and closer to the promise of a new beginning. He thought of the people he was leaving behind, of the lessons they had taught him, and of the dreams that had been both the making and the undoing of J. Gatsby. Arriving in the Midwest, Nick felt a sense of coming home, of returning to a world that made sense to him. The wide open spaces, the slower pace of life, and the connection to the community offered a stark contrast to the frenetic energy and the isolation he had experienced in the East. Here, amidst the fields and the small towns that dotted the landscape, Nick hoped to find the peace and the simplicity he sought. The disillusionment with the East had been a catalyst for change, a push towards a life that was grounded in reality rather than the illusion of dreams. Nick's return to the Midwest was not just a physical journey, but a symbolic move towards healing and towards building a life that was rooted in genuine connections and meaningful pursuits. As Nick settled into his new life, the memories of West Egg, of Gatsby and the summer that had changed everything, lingered. They served as reminders of the complexities of the human heart, of the capacity for love and for loss, and of the enduring nature of dreams. But they also reminded him of the importance of living in the present, of cherishing the simple joys of life, and of staying true to oneself amidst the tumult of the world. Leaving West Egg and the East behind, Nick Carraway embraced the future with a sense of hope and a determination to live a life that was authentic and fulfilling. The lessons he had learned, the friendships he had formed, and the tragedies he had witnessed had all contributed to the man he was becoming. As he looked out over the fields of the Midwest, Nick knew that he had found his way back to a place where he belonged, a place where the dreams of the past could give way to the possibilities of the future. Chapter 15. Reflections. As the season turned, bringing with it the crisp air of autumn. Nick Carraway found himself in the quiet of the Midwest, far removed from the glittering chouse of West Egg. Yet the echoes of the summer and its unfolding dramas lingered in his mind, a tapestry of memories that painted a complex picture of ambition, love, and loss. At the heart of these reflections was J. Gatsby, a man whose dreams had shone brightly against the backdrop of an era marked by both dazzling opulence and profound moral decay. Nick pondered the essence of the American dream, a concept so deeply woven into the fabric of Gatsby's existence. Gatsby, with his boundless optimism and relentless pursuit of a better future, embodied the spirit of that dream. He was a man who dared to reach beyond the confines of his humble beginnings, driven by the belief that life could offer more than what fate had initially handed him. Yet, as Nick delved deeper into his reflections, he recognized the dual nature of this dream. It was a beacon of hope, yet it was also a mirage that led many, like Gatsby, into a labyrinth of illusion and desire. The moral decay of society, as witnessed by Nick, revealed itself as a shadow cast over the brilliance of the American dream. The wealthy elite of East Egg, with their superficial values and disregard for the consequences of their actions, stood in stark contrast to Gatsby's genuine ambition and heartfelt desires. This decay was not limited to the corruption of individual morals, but permeated the very institutions and social structures that held sway over their lives. It was a world where the pursuit of wealth and status often eclipsed the pursuit of genuine human connection and ethical integrity. Nick's reflections on Gatsby's life and the society that surrounded him led to a deeper understanding of the complexity of human desires and dreams. Gatsby's love for Daisy, a love that fueled his every action, was a testament to the power of human emotion and the lengths to which one might go to reclaim a lost past. Yet, this love was also a mirror reflecting the flaws and futilities of chasing a dream that was, from the start, built on the shifting sands of idealization and memory. The realization that dreams could both uplift and undo individuals was a poignant insight for Nick. He saw in Gatsby's fall not just the tragedy of a single man, but the broader cautionary tale of a society adrift, caught between the noble pursuit of aspirations and the destructive forces of greed and selfishness. This duality of the American dream, with its promise of possibility and the peril of its pursuit, became a central theme in Nick's reflections. As Nick looked back on his time in West Egg, he grappled with the lessons learned from his encounters with Gatsby and the world he inhabited. The experience had been a crucible, testing his values and shaping his understanding of the world. He emerged from it with a sense of disillusionment, but also with a newfound clarity about the importance of living with integrity and authenticity in a world that often valued appearances over substance. In his reflections, Nick recognized the enduring beauty of Gatsby's dream, not for its material aspirations, but for its reflection of the human capacity for hope and the relentless pursuit of a vision of a better life. This realization brought with it a sense of melancholy for the innocence lost, but also a measure of respect for the resilience of the human spirit. Nick's journey from the glittering shores of West Egg back to the solid ground of the Midwest was more than a geographical shift. It was a journey of understanding, a passage through the complexities of human desires and the realities of their consequences. In the end, Nick's reflections on Gatsby's life, the American dream, and the moral decay of society revealed the intricate dance between the pursuit of dreams and the necessity of confronting the truths of one's existence. As the story of J. Gatsby faded into the recesses of Nick's memory, it left behind a legacy of questions about the nature of ambition, the cost of dreams, and the value of integrity in a world often indifferent to it. These reflections, born from the summer's events, became a guiding light for Nick, a reminder of the depth of human complexity and the eternal quest for meaning amidst the chaos of life. Chapter 16. The Green Light. As autumn painted the world in hues of gold and red, Nick Carraway found himself standing once more on the shores of West Egg, his gaze drawn across the water to the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. This small, glowing beacon had been a symbol of so much throughout the summer's unfolding drama, a symbol of hope, desire, and the unattainable dreams that drive the human spirit. The green light, with its constant presence in the darkness, had been Gatsby's guiding star, the embodiment of his dreams and aspirations. It was more than just a physical light. It represented the idea that no matter how far away our dreams may seem, they are always within sight, always just beyond our reach, urging us on. Nick pondered the significance of this light and what it symbolized not just for Gatsby, but for everyone who dares to dream. It was a poignant reminder of the perpetual pursuit of happiness, the eternal quest for something just out of grasp. This pursuit, Nick realized, was at the heart of the human experience, a fundamental drive that connects us all. In reflecting on the green light and its meaning, Nick understood that it was not just the attainment of dreams that defined us, but the journey towards them. Gatsby's life, though marked by tragedy and unfulfilled desires, was a testament to the power of hope and the resilience of the human heart. His pursuit of the green light, of a dream that seemed forever beyond reach, was what gave his life purpose and passion. The green light also served as a metaphor for the American dream, the belief in the possibility of a better life, a brighter future just on the horizon. This dream, so deeply ingrained in the national consciousness, was both a source of inspiration and a cause of heartache. It propelled individuals forward, but it also highlighted the gap between aspiration and reality, between the world as it is and as we wish it to be. As Nick stood there, the distance between himself and the green light seemed to embody the space between dreams and reality, a space filled with longing, hope, and the sometimes harsh truths of life. He realized that every light that beckons us forward is like the green light at the end of Daisy's dock, beautiful, enticing, and ultimately elusive. The story of J. Gatsby, with its highs and lows, its moments of joy and pain, was a reflection of this universal pursuit. Gatsby's dream, so closely tied to the green light, was a reminder that the things we chase, the dreams we hold dear, are often just out of reach, not because they are impossible, but because they are always evolving, always just a bit further along the path. In the end, Nick's reflections on the green light led him to a deeper understanding of himself and the world around him. He recognized that the beauty of dreams lies not in their fulfillment, but in the journey they inspire, the actions they provoke, and the lives they touch. The green light, with its eternal promise of what might be, urges us to keep reaching, to keep striving for the better, the brighter, the just out of reach. And so as Nick turned away from the green light for the last time, he carried with him the lessons of the summer, the memories of Gatsby, and a newfound appreciation for the complexity of dreams and the enduring nature of hope. The green light remained, a symbol of all that we seek and all that we yearn for, a reminder that the pursuit of happiness, in all its forms, is a journey without end, illuminated by the lights that guide us, however distant they may seem. And that brings us to the end of our story. The green light, forever shining at the end of Daisy's dock, reminds us of the dreams that always seem just out of reach and the endless pursuit of happiness. If this story moved you, or if you found it helpful in your journey to learn English, please show your support by hitting the like button. Don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts or what you'd like to hear next. For more stories like this, and to download PDF versions for your practice, visit us at wooenglish.com. Your support motivates us to keep sharing these stories. Thank you for listening, and keep chasing your green lights.